Usually when a company rolls out a massive new piece of enterprise technology, um, there's this certain, I don't know, heaviness to it.
Oh, absolutely. A real weight.
Right. Like, think about the last time your organization introduced a new enterprise resource planning system or even just upgraded a massive spreadsheet software. It was an event.
A very painful event, usually.
Yeah. It involved, like, implementation teams, mandatory training days, um, software manuals that could honestly double as doorstops. It was incredibly disruptive.
It was disruptive, but it was also structurally honest.
Structurally honest. I like that. What do you mean by that?
Well, you knew up front that you had to learn the machine's language,
Okay.
The interface itself taught you that you couldn't just casually ask the software to balance a budget.
Right. You can't just type, please do my taxes into a spreadsheet cell.
Exactly. You had to format the data precisely, use the correct syntax, navigate through very specific modules. The friction of the interface forced you to structure your thinking.
But then, you step into the modern workplace with generative AI, and suddenly that entire paradigm it's completely gone.
Completely vanished.
It feels like walking up to a magic wishing well. You just drop in a coin, which in this case is a plain English sentence, and you just ask for what you want.
Which is incredibly tempting.
It's so tempting. And that wishing well illusion is, it's actually at the center of a really fascinating white paper we are unpacking today for this deep dive.
It's a great read.
Yeah, it's from Patrick Iannone, the founder and CEO of Smart AI for Biz. And it's titled The Smart AI for Biz White Paper AI Capability Framework. And our mission for this deep dive is to basically figure out why organizations are largely failing to scale their AI adoption.
Because they really are struggling.
They totally are. We want to find out why AI's biggest selling point is actually a massive trap and, what missing cognitive infrastructure you desperately need to actually make this tech work for you and your team.
Yeah, we really have to start questioning our own assumptions about how, quote-unquote, easy AI is supposed to be. Iannone calls this the paradox that shouldn't exist.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
The paradox that shouldn't exist.
Right. So the accessibility of AI, the fact that it speaks our everyday language, is its most heralded feature, right? But it's actively sabotaging enterprise adoption.
Sabotaging it.
Yes, because AI asks nothing of users on the surface. Organizations tacitly assume it requires nothing of them structurally.
Okay, wait, let me push back on that for a second. The fact that it speaks plain English is the whole point, isn't it?
That's how it's marketed, sure.
All right. So if I can just talk to it like a colleague, why do I need structural requirements? It's designed to understand me.
Well, it's designed to predict you, which is a really subtle but crucial difference.
Predict me.
Yeah. Beneath that plain English conversational interface, you see a large language model is operating on a rigorously structured probabilistic architecture. It is essentially this massively complex prediction engine. So when you provide highly structured intent, you narrow the probabilistic space, right? And the AI retrieves highly targeted, valuable information.
But what if I just use plain English? Like a casual request?
But when you give it ambiguity, when you just drop that casual wish into the well, it doesn't throw a syntax error like old software would.
Right, it doesn't just crash.
No, it just invisibly defaults to the broadest, most statistically average prediction it can find.
Wow. So it penalizes your ambiguity, but it does so by just giving you a confident, completely mediocre answer.
Precisely. And that invisible penalty is just destroying productivity right now.
Yeah.
The white paper highlights a really painful anecdote about this highly talented business development manager.
Oh, yeah. I read this part. It's rough.
It is. So she was prepping for a major strategic planning session, and she spent hours, literally hours, feeding demographic data and competitor information into an AI, trying to draft these sweeping recommendations.
And let me guess, the AI just gave her pure fluff.
Completely. When she presented to her team, the output fell totally flat. It was generic. It lacked any actual strategic bite.
I mean, I've been there. You look at the output and you just think, well, I guess this AI just isn't smart enough yet. You just blame the model.
Which is exactly what she did. But when Iannone actually dug into her process, the model wasn't the problem at all.
It was her prompts.
Right. Her prompts were basically just analyze the data or give recommendations.
Oh, no.
Yeah. She provided absolutely no criteria for what constituted a good analysis. She didn't define the constraints of the market. She just asked.
She basically did exactly what the conversational interface implied she could do.
Exactly. And she failed because she had zero method for expressing her intent to a probabilistic engine.
But, is that just one manager having a bad Tuesday? Because it really feels like AI is everywhere right now. Like everyone I talk to is using it. Are enterprises really failing at this, or are people just like quietly getting their work done and not telling their bosses?
Well, the data answers that decisively, and it completely shifts the framing of the problem. This isn't a technology problem, it's a literacy issue.
A literacy issue. Okay, tell me more.
Let's look at the Pew and MIT data cited in the paper. Only 21% of employees are using AI officially in their recognized workflows.
Okay.
But an astonishing 90% of employees are using what we call shadow AI.
Wait, 90%.
90%.
Meaning they're just using their own personal accounts, bypassing IT, and like finding their own workarounds because the official enterprise tools are too clunky or restricted.
Yes. The official deployments just aren't meeting their needs. But here is the mechanism behind why that shadow AI is actually so dangerous.
Okay, why?
Among those active users, 40% report that AI helps them work faster,
Sure, that makes sense.
but only 29% say it actually improves the quality of their work.
Hold on. So we have a massive chunk of the workforce who are just generating generic garbage but doing it at lightning speed.
That is the speed versus quality gap. Fast average output is still average output, and the academic research explains exactly why this is happening.
What's the research say?
The white paper brings in a 2024 study by Federiakin and colleagues, and their thesis is just groundbreaking. They argue that prompt engineering is not a technical skill.
It's not.
No, it is a 21st century literacy skill. It's on par with like quantitative reasoning or writing itself.
Here's where it gets really interesting. If prompting is a foundational literacy skill, then right now, most companies are basically just throwing dictionaries at their employees and expecting them to write Shakespeare.
That's exactly it.
Like, here's the dictionary, here's the AI, good luck. But you don't solve a literacy gap by buying a fancier pen, you know? You need grammar rules.
That is a perfect analogy, and that grammar is what the author calls cognitive infrastructure.
Cognitive infrastructure. I like the sound of that.
Yeah, and the white paper actually introduces the Smart AI for Biz Enterprise AI Capability Framework to actually build this infrastructure for an organization.
Okay, let's ground this in reality because I don't want to just list off a framework.
Sure.
Let's imagine I'm tasked with launching a new marketing campaign for a software product. Normally, I just open the AI and type, write a marketing campaign for our new accounting software targeted at small businesses.
Right, very standard prompt.
According to this white paper, why is that going to fail, and how does this new framework fix it?
Well, that prompt is going to fail because you've completely skipped layer one of the framework, which is intent and task clarity.
Okay, what did I miss?
You haven't defined the constraints. Before you even touch the keyboard, you have to do the human problem framing.
Human problem framing.
Yeah. Like, who exactly is the audience? What is the core emotional appeal? What are the strict brand guidelines? If you don't define those boundaries, the AI will just guess, and it will guess the most average, boring marketing campaign imaginable.
Wait, but if I have to do all that structural thinking before I even ask the AI to do anything, what am I actually saving time on? Doesn't that defeat the purpose of having an artificial intelligence?
Not at all, because of layer two, which is cognitive scaffolding.
Scaffolding.
Right, you don't have to invent that structural thinking from scratch every single time.
Oh, thank goodness.
The white paper cites research from Vanderbilt University by White et al., which looked at how software engineers use design patterns.
Like reusable templates.
Exactly. Reusable solutions to commonly occurring problems. The Vanderbilt research proves that knowledge workers need prompt patterns.
Rough patterns, okay.
Yeah, these are proven, structured templates for expressing intent that align perfectly with how the AI actually processes information.
So instead of just staring at a blank chat box trying to reinvent the wheel for my marketing campaign, I have a mental template, a scaffold, that literally forces me to input the audience, the tone, and the constraints before the AI generates anything.
Exactly. It's a structured way of thinking. But, if only you have that template, it's just more shadow AI.
Right, because I'm the only one doing it.
Which brings us to layer 3, workflow integration, and layer 4, enterprise alignment.
Okay, how do those work?
The organization has to embed your successful prompt pattern into the actual marketing department's planning templates and handoff protocols.
So making it official.
Yes. They have to build shared prompt libraries so that every single marketer in the company is using the same validated cognitive scaffolding to interact with the AI.
So it transforms AI from like a personal magic trick that I do at my desk into a reliable, governed corporate utility. The whole department shares the grammar.
Yes. But even with shared grammar, the wheels often fall off because people fundamentally misunderstand the nature of their work.
What do you mean?
They treat the AI as if it's a single tool, like a calculator, when it's actually a multi-tool. The cognitive demands you place on the AI change dramatically depending on where you are in your project.
So let's stick with my marketing campaign then. Where does my intent usually break down in the middle of a project like that?
It breaks down because you try to use the exact same prompting approach for vastly different phases of work. The white paper outlines 5 distinct phases.
Okay, 5 phases. Let's hear them.
Let's start at the beginning, planning. This is the most ambiguous phase. Your intent is still forming. If you just ask the AI to plan the campaign, it will hallucinate or just give you a totally useless checklist.
But I want it to help me plan. How do I get it to do that without it just trying to do all the work for me and messing it up?
You use a specific planning prompt pattern that's designed to decompose complexity.
Decompose complexity.
Right. You ask the AI to act as a structural sounding board, to identify missing dependencies or ask you clarifying questions. It's kind of like hiring a brilliant chef.
Okay, I love a good food analogy.
You don't ask the chef to invent a recipe, source the ingredients, cook the meal, taste test it, and write the restaurant review all in one breath.
That would be a disaster.
Exactly. You need distinct interactions.
Okay. So once the AI helps me decompose the plan, I move to the next phase.
Right. Phase 2 is creation.
Creation.
Now you have the plan,
Right.
and you need to generate the actual copy. Your intent here must be generative, but tightly bounded.
So I feed it the constraints we talked about earlier,
Yes. Then you hit phase 3, evaluation.
and this is where I assume I have to change my grammar entirely. Because evaluating a piece of copy requires a totally different mental muscle than brainstorming it.
Radically different. If you just say, is this good? You'll just get a meaningless pat on the back from the AI.
Great job on the copy.
Exactly. The prompts here need explicit criteria embedded in them, like evaluate this copy against our brand guidelines for tone and our specific SEO keyword density requirements.
That makes a lot of sense.
Which leads right into phase 4, decision.
Decision-making feels really dangerous to hand over to an AI.
Well, you aren't handing over the decision. You are using the AI for analytical precision.
Okay.
The paper actually cites research by Liu et al. From 2023 showing that different prompting approaches produce systematically different results across task types.
Really?
Yeah. So for a decision task, you use pattern-driven prompts to drive scenario testing and validate your assumptions. You're aggressively narrowing the probabilistic space before you, the human, draw a conclusion.
Got it. And the final phase.
Finally, phase 5 is delivery, ensuring the message hits the right format for the final stakeholder.
Okay, so if I try to use a creation prompt during a decision phase, I'm going to get a creative, hallucinated decision instead of an analytical one. I'm basically asking the chef to review their own food creatively instead of objectively.
Exactly. Knowing these 5 phases, planning, creation, evaluation, decision, delivery, is how you diagnose exactly where your team is getting stuck.
Okay, so we have the 4-layer framework, and we know the 5 phases where the work cycle breaks down.
Yep.
We've diagnosed the illness. Now, how does a leader actually fix this?
That's the big question.
Because I can easily imagine an executive hearing this, getting slightly panicked about shadow AI, and just throwing cash at a generic, company-wide AI training seminar.
Oh, and that is entirely a Band-Aid. The white paper is adamant that generic AI training will not close this gap.
It won't.
No. Teaching people what a neural network is doesn't help them write a better marketing campaign.
That is so true.
You need specific cognitive scaffolding built for your organization's actual context. And to achieve that, Ian lays out a very explicit 90-day strategic path.
90 days feels like a lifetime in AI development, honestly.
Yeah.
Can't we just deploy the enterprise tool and let the departments figure it out organically?
If you let them figure it out organically, you just get more shadow AI and more generic garbage produced at light speed.
Fair point.
The 90-day path is totally non-negotiable if you want structural adoption. So days 1 to 30 are not about technology. They are about an operational diagnostic.
Operational diagnostic.
Right. Look at 3 to 5 specific workflows in the company and ask, where are the revision cycles the longest? Where is the output quality the most highly variable?
You're looking for the smoke that shows you where the fire of misalignment is actually burning.
Yes. And crucially, you establish a cross-functional working group to tackle this, but they must report to operations or strategy, not IT.
Oh no, why not IT? We are literally talking about deploying software models.
Because, as Federiakin's research showed us, this isn't an IT problem, it's a literacy and workflow problem. It's an operational capability.
Hmm.
If you give it to IT, they will treat it like a software deployment.
They'll focus on uptime, licenses, access.
Exactly. But IT doesn't know how the marketing team evaluates campaign copy. You need the people who own the actual daily work to own the cognitive infrastructure.
That makes total sense. They own the grammar. So that's month one, finding the pain points and putting operations in charge. What happens in days 31 to 60?
This is where you actually build the cognitive scaffolding. You authorize investment in developing specific prompt patterns tied directly to the pain points you found.
So if the marketing copy revision cycle is taking way too long,
You build a phase-specific prompt pattern for campaign generation.
got it.
You pilot these pattern-driven workflows with teams that are already high AI users, and you rigorously measure if those revision cycles actually drop.
So you prove that the new grammar actually improves the quality, not just the speed.
Yeah.
And then in the final stretch, days 61 to 90, I'm assuming you roll this out to everyone.
Standardize and scale. You take that validated pattern library you built, and you make it official organizational intellectual property.
Intellectual property.
Yes, you govern it, you version control it just like software code, and you integrate it into employee onboarding and performance standards.
Wow.
Most governance today is purely defensive. Don't put customer data into the public model.
Right. Basic privacy stuff.
But true governance also needs to be about cognitive layer compliance. Are our people expressing intent using our validated patterns?
So it's no longer just Bob in marketing having a secret cheat sheet of prompts that makes him look like a genius. Bob's prompt pattern becomes the company's official operating procedure.
Exactly.
How do you know when you've actually reached that point, though? Like, when does a leader know the 90 days actually worked?
The author has a brilliant metric for success. The ultimate sign that you've built true cognitive infrastructure is when your teams stop looking at a project and asking, how do we solve this? And start asking, which approach does this phase of work require?
So they've internalized the framework.
They've achieved the literacy.
That's incredible. So bringing this all back to you listening, whether you are an executive tasked with leading a massive enterprise rollout for 10,000 people, or you were just a solo worker sitting at your desk trying to get faster and better at your own job, you need this cognitive infrastructure.
You absolutely do.
You cannot just rely on the tool to be smart for you. You need a method, not just a model.
Because without the method, you are entirely at the mercy of a probabilistic machine's interpretation of your incredibly vague intent.
I want to highlight the concluding thesis from the white paper because it really crystallizes everything we've talked about today. Quote, "The real innovation in enterprise AI isn't the model, it's the method.
That's the core of it.
The technology is just the engine. The cognitive infrastructure, the way you frame your intent, is the steering wheel."
And that reality leaves us with a truly fascinating, almost philosophical implication for the future of work.
Oh, I love a good philosophical implication. Hit me.
Well, we talked about how in layer 4 of the framework, these prompt patterns and the structured ways we communicate with AI become organizational intellectual property.
Right, the company claims ownership of the official cognitive scaffolding.
But think about what happens when a highly skilled employee, someone who has mastered this new literacy, who has built incredibly complex, effective, personal mental models and prompt patterns to do their job flawlessly, what happens when they resign and leave the company?
Oh, wow. They take their brain with them, but their brain is now running on the company's operating system.
Exactly. Do they take their personal cognitive scaffolding with them? Can a company claim ownership over the structured, highly specific way an employee forms their thoughts and communicates with the machine?
That is wild.
Right. If the method is the true innovation and prompt engineering is a fundamental literacy, who truly owns the way you think?
That is going to be an absolute nightmare for HR and legal departments in about 5 years. I can tell you that right now.
Oh, without a doubt.
And it is a fascinating question for all of you to chew on today. It really circles us right back to where we started. We thought AI was this simple magic wishing well where you just toss in a coin and get a perfect wish.
And it's not.
It turns out the wishing well requires an incredibly precise architecture of thought. It's starting to look a lot more like that massive, complex enterprise software we used to dread.
Yeah, full circle.
It's just that the manual we have to write isn't for the software anymore, it's for our own minds.